You are the beautiful community, and we are going to talk about the fact we're stuck in a post-truth age, and just that very idea feels bad because it just gives us the feeling that everything is slipping away from us. Because we know, as we repeat often on the channels, that democracy untethered from the practiced virtue of truthfulness does not last more than a decade or two. What happens is that it begins to rely on its institutions to keep it afloat, but institutions without political culture only keep democracies afloat for 10 to 20 years before they crack entirely. So let's talk. Because I think that we have a lot of misunderstandings about what it means to live in a post-truth age. And I want to boil it down to one core idea, because a term like post-truth is a term that's used in everyday politics, and therefore it shouldn't come with a 77-page-long metaphysical essay about its meaning. It should really be something that a 12-year-old can begin to understand if they're talked through it long enough. And what I'm saying isn't that, these 17 sentences I've written are going to clarify it for us, but that we're going to be talking about this ongoingly, and this is part of a larger story of us coming back to the same room and doing this over and over again. Although I'm beginning to think that core definitions of basic concepts that are important in our culture probably require a main channel video each, and hopefully I'll be moving toward doing that. Are you ready to rock and roll? So when I say that we live in a post-truth age, I don't mean that politicians are lying a lot. Politicians have always lied, sometimes more, sometimes less. But typically lying politicians preserve the difference between lies and truth in general, but just deny it in particular instantiations. So that's not what we're talking about. Nor am I talking about, although here we're closer, about politicians giving up on lying coherently. And we are seeing that, and that takes us closer, because that's politicians not saying, last Tuesday I was in Mongolia. It's politicians saying, last Tuesday I was in Mongolia, last Tuesday I was in Mauritius, last Tuesday I was on the moon, and last Tuesday I was captured by the rings of the planet Saturn. You see, that's closer, but it's still not the core of what we need to understand. And the core of what we need to understand is that today, just one H, just want to order it as a one-off. Yeah, it's not coming. Yeah, I've run out. It's not coming through at all. I lived in Israel in the early and that screwed up my H really, really badly. Yeah, I just want one. No, I don't need a subscription. Immediate delivery. Yeah, super sort of plus diamond service delivery. I need it now. All right, thank you. Hundreds of millions of citizens now find truth itself oppressive. They feel it oppresses their sense of political agency. So their predicament, their choice, as long as we don't mean the term choice literally, is between denying what's true and remaining psychologically intact, or accepting it and feeling stifled, powerless, and lost. And they give up on truth not because they are ignorant and stupid, Hillary Clinton's deplorables, but because a truthful account of their circumstances for them would lead to despair. And so a lesson follows, which technocratic, centrist politicians still struggle to learn. Stop trying to lecture your citizenry into the truth. Instead, help them recover a sense of political agency. What does this mean in practice? The first practical step is to suspend technocracy as a style of government. And I want to give you, how many have I got? 7 points about what this means in practice without getting into specific policy commitments and recommendations. Point 1, beautiful community, is about consent emergencies. Treat policy areas which suffer a severe lack of civic consent as raging fires which you need to put out. Immigration policy is one such example in contemporary Western societies. Now, if dismantling that policy is extremely dangerous or impossible, then immediately embark on repersuading your citizens of it from scratch, as though they were encountering both the society they're in and the policy for the first time. So if it's immigration, you literally start by saying, humans live in societies. This is what modern societies look. In modern societies, people come in and out. When that happens, that goes with different status and different expectations, different blah, 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 blah. Now, sometimes you may need to keep the policy or to keep some of the policy, but understand that tendentiously the emphasis has to be on making rapid change, unless dismantling it is extremely dangerous or impossible. Because the thing is, action here is a way of averting democratic collapse 5 or 10 years from now, right? So get serious about consent emergencies, right? Treat policy areas where there's a very big gap between policy and the consent that you're realistically going to get from a large part of the population, right? Treat that as a kind of a raging fire that you need to put out, not something that passively, defensively, you hope goes away because citizens eventually wise up. Second point, consent before policy. So you never implement a major change without securing public consent for it first. In the future, public consent should come first and policy second. Right? Citizens feel that a lot of things happened in the last 10, 20, 30 years, which just as it were happened because some kind of policy wonks decided they were the right thing to happen. Citizens feel like they were never asked. Don't repeat that political practice. 3, losing versus being wrong. This is a very important pluralistic insight. If you live in a post-truth society that is radically polarized, as our societies are, you're going to have a lot of government decisions that go against large sections of the citizenry, because often you're going to have 30% of the population really making a strong claim for something and 30% making a strong claim against it. So when this happens, tell citizens against whom you decided, right, who are on the wrong end of the policy decision, that they have lost. Don't tell them that they're wrong and that they should wise up, right? So you say, your claim was valid. It clashed with another valid claim. This time, the decision went against you. But in most cases, this is a decision you could re-legislate in the future. This leads to point 4. Desacralize policy. So stop embedding political positions into your conception of what the country is all about, right? Because the present requires a wider political normal than the recent past did, than the 1990s did. And so constraining the present, which needs a wider normal, into a narrower normal, effectively risks a situation where you collapse any capacity to get citizens to agree on anything being normal at all. Right? That's when citizens act destructively. some simple tips here now. 5, be proactive, right? Act, take initiative, over communicate, and declare your vision. 6, acknowledge. So acknowledge directly the 4 elements of, I'm sorry, this is a broken record, emotional elements of mistrust that people feel. So people feel unsafe, people feel powerless, people feel betrayed, and worst of all, people feel a sense of opacity about politics when they look at the game of politics and they feel that it has become unintelligible altogether. 7, apologize. Apologize for decisions taken by your predecessors, past technocratic centrist governments, with insufficient public consultation, and promise not to repeat the error. Conclusion, beautiful community. We know on the channels that democracy does not survive unless it is tethered to the practiced virtue of truthfulness. Many passionate defenders of democracy have claimed that maybe you don't need to tether it like that. A wonderful colleague of mine from the world of philosophy repeatedly made that argument, Richard Rorty. He was wrong. You have to have, in an institutionalized form, a solid, right, intransigent tethering of democratic practice to truthfulness. But you don't reach agency, give people a sense of agency, a sense that they're not asphyxiated as political actors. Right? You don't reach agency by lecturing people into truthfulness. This is very important, right? You reach truthfulness by restoring agency. You don't reach agency by lecturing citizens about truthfulness. So, agency first, boom, truthfulness the consequence if things go well. If you do it the other way around, truthfulness as a way of restoring agency, you're going to have a catastrophe. You're going to have Viktor Orbáns in power in your country very soon. What are technocratic centrist governments spending 70 to 80% of the time doing? Truthfulness. First, agency second. The wrong causation, catastrophic results are set to follow unless we change. Right? So it's about getting this into the head of increasingly, unfortunately, unimaginative and increasingly scared centrist technocrats. We shouldn't be dismissive of these people. We should empathize what an incredibly difficult job it is to be in politics. But we should also push people to wake up, right? So if you ignore this order, agency first, truthfulness second, rather than the other way around, then appeals to truth become not a defense of democracy, but a kind of pathological expression of political demophobia, right? It just sounds like you despise your electorate. That's a recipe for defeat, and also a recipe for not taking care of their needs. This is the beginning. This is not the end of the conversation, but I'm grateful for you for being with me. If you want this in writing, find it on my Substack, Vlad Substack, whether I attach a link below or not. Lots of love. Talk soon.